if you have to do it without, I actually. Welcome back. Today's our final day of clinics. There will be some concerts live streamed tomorrow on the Facebook pages for the WTAMU Band Camp and WTAMU School of Music. But this is going to be our last day of clinics. So we have this 11 o'clock. We have a 1:30 that's going to be great. So come to those two. Today we're going to be talking about trombone. This is Dr. Shanks, and he is a WT professor. He's going to give you a little bit about his history and talk with us about teaching trombone.
Yeah, very nice to be here.
Sorry, and online people, I'm uploading your handout right now.
Hello. Yeah, the handout is really just a condensed version of some of the more salient points in the PowerPoint, but nothing really. There will be no test. You don't need to study it too hard. Do I need to sit? Can I wander? And
you
also, advancing slides. Maybe I can.
You can move that card.
Oh, hey,
More
look.
on the keyboard.
Perfect. Easy. Yes. Okay, great. So, first of all, who in the world are we dealing with? I don't have any education training, as you may be able to tell or will shortly. I wish I had. I recommend to all my students who are wanting to do my job that they get education training, because, boy, that would be helpful. I had one 3-hour pedagogy class during my doctorate and conducted one piece on a trombone choir concert. And they said, go forth and teach. Go forth and teach teachers, which I thought was wildly irresponsible, but that's been my life, so here we are. So I went to Youngstown State University, go Penguins, and near where I grew up. Went to Indiana University, flamed out, dropped out of music, didn't want to go out of bed, really. Right during the 2008 financial crisis. And moved back in with my parents at 25. But fortunately, it didn't stop there. Somehow failed at failing and went back and got my doctorate. And it's been a whole lot of fun. I have done a variety of playing and teaching stuff. I had a job in the Mississippi Symphony and taught at Jackson State University in Mississippi. Did some stuff there. And I joined the WT faculty in 2014 on a 1-year contract, and somehow I'm still here. So that's the short version. But yeah, mostly my life has been focused around playing, and the more teaching I've gotten to do, the fact that WT took a chance on me to do this as a full-time kind of gig, really changed my perspective on what I wanted to do with my life. I find that the relationships with the students and the faculty and the community has been, so much more meaningful to me than just making sounds on this thing. Fortunately, this is the same instrument I've had since college, so have your kids pick out good instruments, and maybe they don't have to spend any more money in their career, and it can just make them money. But easier said than done, getting them to lay out on a good instrument. So really what I thought about for this presentation was, what do I run into as a college professor that give me job security, and how can I ruin that for myself? By you guys, taking care of all this before I have to. So really the main thing that separates, and Texas is such a weird place for this. The main thing that separates the high school player from a professional player is just the sound they make on the instrument, right? You have so many trombone players, sorry online people, so many trombone players who might know all the notes, have a great range, but their sound is one of those. You're those types that might even have great air, but their sound is just really, really dull when soft and brittle when loud, and intonation is inconsistent. And that was me for a long time, and I'm sure that's a lot of all of our students, mine included. So the main thing that I am focused on with all those students is tone. I think that I found it to be pretty true that we are best at teaching the things that we had to work on. That's the thing that I had to work on the most. The guy I did my master's with at Indiana was like, "You're never going to get a job. Your sound is terrible. Like, I don't care how high you can play. I had this complex about sound, so much that when I was working with the principal of the New York Phil on his seminar, up in front of all these other like really good players a couple of years ago, in like 2015 is not a couple of years ago anymore. Gross. I saw other people getting old and didn't think it would happen to me. Anyway, so just a few years ago in 2015, when I was working with this guy, he's like, "Man, your sound is such a strength." And instinctually I said, "No, it's not." And then was like, "Oh, well, maybe he knows what he's talking about." So yeah, just develop a nice, healthy complex in your students to make a good sound. So I focus so much on sound with students for that reason. It is your voice. It is the reason people listen to you. Next to that, and of course related, posture and breathing. Those are so related. So I run across so many students, some in fact even this morning during private lessons, who think they're going to make a good sound hunched over, under the stand. Part of it is that this is one of the most ergonomically stupid instruments that exists, second only to the bass trombone, where you don't even get the middle finger to help you hold the thing up. In the bass trombone, you have usually a second valve, so this finger has to remain free, so the whole weight of the instrument is somehow hanging on your two worst fingers. It's a delight. As an aside, there will be many of these. As far as that, one of the jobs I did while I quit music was playing music on a cruise ship. And so, being not dumb, I made friends with the dancers. And one of the dancers was studying to be a personal trainer and wanted to see if she could give me free personal training while I was on the ship. And again, not being that dumb, I said, "Yes, of course you can do that." And we were doing free weights. And she's like, why does this arm go straight? And why is this arm out to the side like this? And I said, "Well, what do I do most of my life? This goes this way and this goes that way." So like this was developed so differently from this side. So that's a real thing. So we try to minimize the bad ergonomic effects of the trombone as much as we can to allow the breathing apparatus to work. And then slide grip. If there's time, I work on slide grip. I see so many weird slide grips because as an overall director, we can't give students the individual time that we want. Of course, we'd love to give infinite individual time to every student, but even as a person whose job it is to give individual time to students, I don't have as much time as I would want to completely overhaul everything it is about what they're doing wrong. So slide grip, we'll get to that. That's like the end there. So there's a lot of really well-meaning embouchure sayings that I've heard, both personally and secondhand. A lot of these conflict with each other, by the way. The really common one is you should be able to play a brass instrument if it's suspended from the ceiling on a rope, right? Like you should just walk up to it and make this perfect sound into the instrument. There are really good pedagogical reasons behind all of these. I'm not saying that these are wrong. I'm saying that applying anything all of the time is probably wrong. Sweeping generalizations are always wrong. A couple people got it. Other than that one. So yeah, there should be no pressure. Or this past summer, the faculty brass quintet got to go to Sweden. And we participated as students. The WT faculty brass quintet participated as students in the Stockholm Chamber Brass Academy. We got to work with wonderful professors from over Europe. The trombone professor is Jonas Bylund, who's this international legendary teacher and player. And the English choices were fun. So he said, you must maintain super contact from the mouthpiece to the trombone. He's like, no, shove it into your face, super contact. And I was like, well, I grew up hearing there should be like next to no contact. I should be able to buzz like next to the instrument and it played. He's like, oh, this is stupid. So there's a lot of conflicting advice on mouthpiece pressure and mouthpiece buzzing and free buzzing, and what else did I even say here? Yeah, the horn is an amplifier for the mouthpiece. That's a big one. Yes and no. Kind of mostly no, but I understand why yes. So we'll get into some of these. More air is always the answer. It's really tempting to say, and in a lot of cases it's true. In many cases, using more air is exactly what they need, but not in all cases. Sometimes that is awful. It involves a really inefficient playing and a bad sound. Yes, so I've actually been told pedagogically to, when mouthpiece buzzing, see if you can make the tiniest little, tightest, most muscular buzz possible. Yeah, I think I've covered most of these. But anyway, there's also a school of thought where you just put air into the instrument and the embouchure doesn't buzz whatsoever. There's a really prominent school in this state, very, very big green school that I've heard of, where they teach this, and I completely sympathize, and I haven't talked to them about this, but I completely understand why they would say that. I get it. Physically, it's wrong. You can see there are studies. In fact, my old professor from Indiana, when he was in the Seattle Symphony, participated in a study where they took a mouthpiece and drilled a couple of holes and put fiber optic cables in there, hooked those up to cameras and strobe lights, and they had pressure sensors inside his mouth and cameras inside his mouth, and you could actually see the lips vibrating as he was playing. They painted dots on his lips, matched those up, matched the strobe light to the frequency of the note he was playing, and you can actually see the waves travel through the lips as they're vibrating. So the lips do vibrate, but that's not the main thing I think we should be paying attention to. We should be paying attention to putting air in. The freest, most resonant buzz is a resultant thing. It's not a thing we have to try to create. In fact, we really can't physically buzz our lips. We don't have like bumblebee muscles on our face. We don't literally vibrate them with muscles. Even with that tight muscular buzz, it's still a resultant thing that happens. But to get the most efficient resonant sound, our lip tissue shouldn't be flexed. And so just blow air in there and let the muscles only do as much as they need to. So all these are well-meaning sayings. They probably were meant to correct an over-reliance on one thing or another. But the problem is, when a student hears you should free buzz all the time and develops this, like, their lips have biceps and abs, and their sound is tight, or they never want to buzz a mouthpiece, anything like this. So the problem becomes when we take these things too much as dogma. Okay, what do we do about this as mechanics? Number one, and this is a trap I fell into as a beginning teacher, was with no training, was I dumped all the information I knew on my students who were 18 and wanting to go to parties and remember to go to band. That was their main mental thing. So I'm like, the orbicularis oris this and the whatever. So avoid paralysis by analysis. Don't dump too much information at them. They're trombone players in school, so they probably can't handle that much anyway. Right. There's only room for so much, it will spill out. They're going to forget how to tie their shoes if you put too much in there. So I prefer to cue on, to give cues rather than specific instruction. I don't want to say, I really try to avoid these days, like, oh, you should really flex this and hold this like that, because we can't see in there, and everyone's mouth is different. It would be different if you're playing a cello and you can see that their elbow's up here or something, like, hey, you should try putting it wherever a cello elbow goes, I don't know. But yeah, cues, it should feel like this, imagine this. I really try to do that first before diving into the physical, unless they're doing something incredibly stupid like playing the viola or being on fire or smiling, the whole purpose here, right? We all know brass players shouldn't have a smiling embouchure, right? And it's really easy to see that as a director. From the podium, it's very easy to see around the mouthpiece They have like the Heath Ledger thing going on next to their face to play high, and you're like, okay, cool, I see that, I can correct that. So we all know, like, there's no smiling, while playing a brass instrument. It goes a little further than that. If you can, I think the collapsed chin is just about as severe an issue as the smiling. It's just so much harder to see from the podium because they hide it underneath the mouthpiece. And so you can't really see when the chin is doing that. Even without the beard, it's even easier to see. It becomes a little peach pit. That, particularly when they're trying to play high. So I think that's an issue that I had to correct in myself, and I have to correct in a lot of my students. Is, okay, I know I can't smile. I need to make the embouchure tighter somehow. Let's do this. And collapse the chin up. And then if their horn angle is just bizarre, if they've been institutionalized in the marching band in such a way that it must always be this, even if they have an overbite, and the airstream should really be going that way, which is no longer in the instrument. So they're doing something weird to have their horn to the box at all times. So if they have an overbite and their horn is pointed way up, that's probably a severe issue to look at. So I really try not to physically correct too much off the get-go, unless I see smiling, a collapsed chin, a really weird horn angle, or something that's similarly weird. Trombone is actually very simple. Brass instruments in general are pretty simple, and the trombone, fortunately, is the simplest of them all for us. Really, there's not that much to it. There really isn't, and the trombone is a problem because it doesn't really help you that much. If you're bad tone, if you put bad information in, there's not really many places for it to be corrected by the instrument before it comes out into the world. So I think the way to make it function simply is that in the kingdom of trombone, the air is the king. No one tells the air what to do. I was teaching a lesson this morning, and somebody who's like already employed in a military band setting. The air was telling the tongue what to do. There's fast notes. There's some sort of like, and there were repeated puffs of air instead of where the air is just going. So the air does what the air wants and tells everything else what to do, and more importantly, no one else tells the air what to do. Even the articulation. So everyone else is a subject in the king of trombone, or in the kingdom of trombone. The air is the king. Now, just straight old air going through the instrument, it's great, but it doesn't cause the instrument to do what it does the best. The air really doesn't travel that fast through here. There's a video of Christian Lindberg, famous trombone soloist, who and certified Swedish crazy man, who was a chain smoker in his young life. And so the story goes, his teacher told him he needed to be in marathon shape to play whatever recital he had coming up, and so he took that literally and started running marathons while still smoking. He never gave up the smoking habit. So there's a solo piece that he does, I think it's called The Legend of Kit Bone or something like this, where he takes a big drag on a cigarette, puts the trombone up, starts playing, and you can see the smoke just kind of wafting out of the bell. But it doesn't shoot out. He's playing pretty loud, but it just kind of goes up like this. It's just being gently pushed through with all this like loud playing. You're not, other than if you're doing one of those, not a whole lot of air is going through. Ideally, it's a whole lot of vibration. Sometimes you need that much air to make that much vibration, but generally not. So we put vibration in. I've seen videos of somebody made a mouthpiece where it's actually blocked. There's a rubber membrane inside the mouthpiece and then like a vent out the side for the air to go. So the vibration in the mouthpiece is setting that membrane vibrating, and the instrument sounds pretty regular. I mean, not good, but better than you'd think, to prove that it's just setting this air column into vibration that causes the instrument to work instead of the air moving all the way through. This is dangerous knowledge for students. Mm-hmm. This is very dangerous knowledge for students. So be careful about how we apply this, because they will think, oh, I don't need to move any air. A lot of times more air is the issue, or is the fix. But really, for us to know, vibration is what causes it, and producing efficient vibration at the face with this equipment that we have That is the goal. So we seek to make the most vibration for the least air expenditure. Really, really brand new beginners are actually pretty good at this. They just, it's not going to be professional, but those beginners that are, that's a decent amount of sound, and I'm using like no air. How long could, I could do that for minutes. So they're not expending any air, and there's some sound coming out. So we try to do that, but in a way that sounds good. And then the secret weapon behind all this, the key to unlock the efficiency, I think, is vowel shape. The shape of what vowel your oral cavity is making. So it is actually rocket science, vowel shape. So a fluid being moved through a compression point. Really, technically, it would be an incompressible fluid, but a fluid moving through a compression point has to speed up when it's under pressure. We inherently know this. Those of us who grew up, the whole generational divide, those of us whose childhood was go outside, come back sometime. Please just leave the house. So jokes on them, I would go outside and read. But one of the things you would do is you play with the garden hose, right? So with no nozzle on your garden hose, you turn it on from the house, and that water is under pressure. It's coming from the water towers and all that that my 4-year-old is obsessed with. We drive around, she goes, water tower. So the water's under quite a bit of pressure, and you undo the spigot, and the water comes out the hose. And then you put your thumb over most of it, and that water's still under pressure, but it has to move faster for it to be able to leave, because you're not going to it's not going to go the other way. So to escape, it has to go faster. So we're putting that same amount going much faster, right? So that compressing, making a choke point of this air that's under compression causes it to go faster, and that is how sound is produced. And that's also how rocket engines work. You have explosions, controlled explosions, in a chamber. That gas has to go somewhere, and it goes through a specially designed nozzle, a small point that opens up. As it opens up, that exhaust goes faster, pushes it, and the rocket goes up. So more or less what we're doing is rocket science. I got that. I ripped this, hopefully it's a GIF. Yeah, it's moving. I got that right from the Wikipedia article on the Venturi effect. So the problems with this are there are so many ways to restrict the airflow, and most of them don't sound very good. Like at best, they don't sound good. They make it worse at best. I thought that was a really uniquely English, stupid way to phrase that. So yeah, at best, they only make the sound worse most of these ways, and sometimes you might get physical issues or pain or something like this. And then, so there are a number of less efficient ways to do this, and the issue I find as a college instructor, we love to hold on to what we already know. Mr. So-and-so says this, or some dude on the internet said this, and so, boy, I sure need to do this all the time. My lips need to be so strong. And kids are talking about how do you build lip strength. Like, stop thinking about lip strength. Think about, air speed rather than lip strength. You only need enough lip strength. Lungs deal in pounds and lips deal in ounces. So use the lungs as much as you can. So, let's see, did I go into any of the, what have I done? Hello? I hit a button, unauthorized button. Okay. So, I think the best way to restrict this air is with the vowel shape. And this is particularly for playing high. The higher you go, the faster the air needs to go. Faster air cannot only come from the lungs. Imagine you have a birthday candle right here and you want to blow it out, and your mouth is wide open like you're trying to eat a tennis ball. Not going to work. No matter how hard you blow, you're going to get a and it's just not going to go anywhere, right? That flame's going to, maybe. But if you put that same amount of like torso effort that I just put through one of those, the candle's going to have no chance as long as you're aiming correctly. So your lungs are capable of delivering a lot of air really fast, but that Venturi effect needs to happen. It needs some extra help to go fast enough to work in the instrument. So ways that I see, initially students want to either stretch, they want to smile, and make the hole smaller that way, which works to a point badly. And then there's the compression, the chin coming up. And a way to check if they're doing that is have them put their finger on their chin. In fact, I was taking a lesson with Joe Alessi, who's the principal of the New York Phil, and he put his finger on my face. It was like, I've never been touched during a lesson. Different times, I guess, but yeah, he put his finger on my chin and said, okay, play lip slurs. And I couldn't. Now, get my beard out of the way. Like, I don't feel my finger moving, but then it would, and especially when he was pushing down, that chin really wanted to collapse upwards. When you're pushing the lip tissue together, it does make that aperture smaller. And so thereby the air goes faster. And that's why you get students who sound fine in the middle register. But they go higher. And that's really concerning because, like, oh, cool, they sound fine, except for when they don't. Yeah. It should sound the same, right? And not. You really only get up to about a B flat or a C, and then most people's faces just can't handle with the collapsy chin. So that air is moving faster through the mashed together lips, but that's still not the most efficient way. So there's another large muscle in that air path. Figure the air starts in the lungs, goes up through the neck, throat area, and out the mouth. There's another really large muscle that's available to help us, and it's the tongue. And the tongue is not just this little wiggly part in the front. It makes up like most of the front of your throat, right? I mean, there's this huge thing that's anchored pretty far down, disturbingly far down inside your head and neck area. I would recommend, there's wonderful MRI videos of Sarah Willis, the horn player, and also Douglas Yo, the bass trombone player, playing into plastic tubes, of course, in an MRI machine. And you can watch them not only articulate, but play various lip slurs. It's absolutely a thing you should check out on YouTube. Fun point with Mr. Yo, evidently he taught for a long time the tongue remained flat on the bottom of the mouth. And then you watch him play in an MRI, and it sure comes up a whole lot for remaining flat. And so he's now revised that to, I maintain the most vertical space that I can given the note, which makes much more sense. So the higher you go, the more towards E that your tongue goes, you'll notice that it raises up inside your mouth. This is not news to trumpet players, for sure. More restriction equals faster air, and the tongue, as long as you're doing it right, isn't buzzing inside the mouthpiece to make the instrument work. So the tongue is completely free to restrict the air in this way without compromising the sound. If you're pinching with the lips, whether it's smiling or compressing or just straight up main force mashing your lips together, the lips are not free to resonate, and so they're not available to make sound, efficient sound. So the tongue is more than happy to restrict a lot of that air. If you want to sound like doesn't even have to be E, you could sound like a cat. If you do that, I feel that on my leg hair, I feel that air is moving pretty fast, and I didn't have to blow that hard. So if your tongue is up in the airstream and you force the air past that, it's going faster with no detriment to the embouchure. And of course, then the other side of that, the lower you go, the more towards like what a tuba player's mouth setup is, the ah. Less restriction, slower, wider air. So, and just like everything else, that's on a spectrum. So your very lowest notes, like if I'm gonna, my tongue is like flat as it can be in the bottom of my mouth, ah. And then if I'm gonna, it's gonna be up there, it's very, like there's almost no space for the air to go other than just this little flat tunnel at the top of my mouth. And it changes. So trumpet players are E a lot of the time, and tuba players are ah a lot of the time, and the sort of middle low brass, large range kind of instrument here, it can go from very low to very high, and it's just on a spectrum wherever it works for the student. You might think about different syllables. Instead of just straight two E's, it might be like E-I-H or whatever, depending on how the student's mouth is. But that's a pretty fine point that I'm happy to dive into with them once I get them. But yes, the main thing, don't discourage them, please, from E in the high register to ah in the low register. It really, really helps. Even though trombone is low brass, we play pretty darn high sometimes. And I get students who they've been asked to play parts that are too high, too early in their development, and so they want to make us happy, and they do whatever they have to make it happen. And often those are the more apparent bad habits of mashing the lips together or collapsing the chin or even smiling. So that it really can take years off their potential development. What else did I say on this thing? Yes, the tongue doesn't vibrate while we're playing, I hope. I already said that. The lips do, yes. Let's not use them as the main. I already said all that stuff. Cool, go me. So there's some helpful exercises that I found to help develop general trombone tone. One of which is buzzing the mouthpiece. Now, there are various schools of thought about this. There are schools of thought of you should never. There are schools of thought of you should do it all the time. And there's schools of thought about how it should sound. I'm a very not dogmatic person. I see good and bad in almost everything. One of the things I found to be the most universally helpful in most cases is doing some mouthpiece buzzing in a really airy style. I think that buzzing is important to match the audiation of the pitch to the tone generating apparatus without the instrument being in the way. The instrument will correct an incorrect note. You know, here's an F, and if I'm going to buzz an F sharp, I'm going to keep that F sharp, and the instrument's going to fix it. I'm not changing what my mouth is doing, the instrument is fixing it for me. But it sounds a lot better if I put the right pitch into the instrument. So the more immediate they can match that audiation to the tone production, the more resonant and free their pitch is going to be. The less their instrument's going to have to help them, the less weird intonation variance they're going to have. Now, why an airy buzz? Because that's what it feels like to make a good sound on the instrument. And you can't just say, if they don't make a good sound on the instrument, you can't say, hey, have you considered making a good sound on the instrument? That's how you do it. Great, that'd be wonderful. But you can tell them to do something entirely different, which is make the airiest buzz known to man, and then put that into the instrument. If you make a good mouthpiece buzz, this is why the instrument is not really an amplifier for the mouthpiece, because this is some college stuff, this is shorter than this. So this tube is much longer than this tube, and as a physical system, responds differently to inputs. You notice on the instrument, you can't. There's no. There's some pesky harmonics that get in the way when you do it like that. So, if I'm making a good mouthpiece buzz, that's very little air. It's pretty clear. If we had a mouthpiece ensemble, that's what I'm going for. I want that. I don't want that sound. You don't want that sound. No. If you tell them to make an airy buzz, that's something they can probably do. Say, hey, put a big, huge, airy hold right down the middle of that mouthpiece buzz. There's still accurate pitch information. The way you can vary that, you can't really pinch your lips to do that when you're making an airy buzz, because it's not airy anymore. The only way you can vary the pitch is by changing the vowel shape. If you can get them on board with doing that, suddenly they get this nice, resonant, easy singing sound. As you remember from the previous slide, it's just tricky to get them to believe that and to leave behind the that they're used to. But it really does work. So the primary thing that I like fix with students is like making them doing this airy buzz. not a lot, not a whole lot, not 20 minutes a day, maybe 10, 15 minutes. We'll do it in some lessons and make sure that they know the concept. But whenever they feel like their sound is getting tight, rather than saying, hey, open my sound, no, just take this off and make a nice airy buzz. How are we doing? Great. Perfect. Yes. So other exercises on the instrument, once they can recreate that, I'll have them do stable pitch, dynamic long tones. What does that mean? So we get to look at the tuner. I will do the scary thing of letting you see this, most of you. Where can I put this? So checking in with the pitch, not letting it change, but changing the dynamic. Because most of the students are going to go, and it's going to do one of those. So we want. More or less keep the pitch stable. As you get louder, keeping the pitch, well, it's going to feel like lipping it down, but really it's just playing it efficiently. So stable pitch, dynamic long tones. And then advanced, do like 2-note slurs, like little Trombone call them Remingtons, where you I went a little far. It's also really good for pitch target practice. So you vary the dynamic up and down while maybe changing pitch. That's the advanced one. The regular one is just keep the pitch stable while making it really loud to really soft. That kind of reprograms the apparatus to where it doesn't get tight as we get louder. In fact, it feels like we get more relaxed as we get louder. Tuner awareness. This was drilled a whole lot. I feel like we do tuners in a variety of different ways. This is the thing we should add. Have them establish their best sound and then tune that sound. So I see so many students with this because they're playing high notes. They're like, I gotta play my high notes, and man, I'm too sharp. It's an in-tune high B flat, but it doesn't sound very good. So with my tuning slide way out here, where's the best sound I can make? Pretty flat. And it's so hard to even do that. One of the best things a professor ever did for me was he went, okay, now play in tune. No problem. It's not even a bad sound. But when they first did that, I was like, no way. That's my embouchure. I can't go. Where does it go? So learning to play relaxed really opens up the sound. Okay, so if I have it about here, nice and easy. And so I try to only have the tuning slide out as much as I need. I had a student, really advanced student, one of my most advanced students that I've had, came back after winter break, and her tuning slide was like an inch further out than normal. I said, okay, what high Bs have you been playing? She said, how did you know? It was Bluebells of Scotland. I said, because your tuning slide's like falling off. And you're lipping like you shouldn't be doing. So a lot of times, yeah, if they're going sharp, trying to play high, they could be much more efficient and sounding a lot better by doing these exercises. Yes, this is a no lipping zone. The trombone does not have to lip, except in really strange circumstances. Like if you want to play a low B that doesn't exist on the instrument, you have to lip it down. But other than that, there's very, very, very few times when a trombone player should be lipping anything. We have the luxury of being able to play right down whatever length tube we're playing and make the most efficient centered sound. And then if we need it to be flatter, we'd literally just do that. We don't have to lip anything anywhere. And then also, finally, I do so much glissing. I have this exercise I like to do that involves alternate positions and glisses. where I try to make a gliss that goes the whole range of the instrument. Why? Because every note, whether it's here or here or here or whatever, is a slice of that. So I want that whole, if it's a slice, I want that whole sausage or loaf or whatever to be good. It's lunchtime. So like, I want that whole thing to sound good. If I was going to stop anywhere at like a A+, like there or whatever, I want that to sound good. I don't want to only be focused on the beginning and the end. I want the whole instrument to sound good. And then you can always with alternate positions extend that. Yeah, and then you run out of air. There is one break. And then that's basically the whole range of the instrument. There's one break between trigger C and pedal B flat. But I want the face to not know that there's breaks. Just make great sound all the way up and down the horn. If you're centered and making a resonant sound all the way through any even small slice of that gliss, that shows that your mechanics are good. You don't have to say, okay, roll this lip and do whatever. If their focus is on projecting a resonant sound the whole time, then they're doing the right thing. Very quickly, dealing with the other things other than tone. Posture and breathing. Really, honestly, the shoulders should be above the hips, and if they're standing, they should be above the feet. I do see a lot of students go up to a music stand and they want to fit this other part of the ergonomically stupid instrument that we play underneath the stand and look at it, and they're like, I saw somebody this morning in a lesson do that. This person has paid for 4 lessons this week and they're still doing that. Job security. Anyway, yeah, every morning I correct it. It's wonderful. Maybe she'll get it eventually. But yeah, so this is not going to allow your lungs to expand as much as this does. I find surprisingly, this is like the smallest I've been. I grew up a really, really big kid, and I think I thought I could hide the fact that I was fat from people if I like did this. So sometimes kids do that. They're like, I don't want to breathe really deep. People think they'll know I have a belly. Like, we know. The Jim Gaffigan thing. He's got his arms crossed. He's like, can't see my belly. Like, yes, you can. You can't see it, but they can. So yeah, have them stand up straight, shoulders back. Like, this is what it is. Enjoy, and then play, because your lungs can then expand. That's how we work. That's how we function. Shoulders above the hips, above the feet. And then let's not compress the lungs by being a weird cashew. I see that. And then sometimes, more rarely when standing, you get like the grandpa hips, where they do this. And they like kind of sink back somehow, and the hips are like in front of the shoulders. I don't know why they do that. But I think a lot of it is because how ergonomically dumb this is. To fit it into compressed spaces in a band room, or to fit around a music stand that okay, now I can't see this portion of my vision, so I have to look over there, and the slide's got to be next to the stand. So a lot of times they get themselves in these weird positions to play the trombone. So we mitigate as much as we can. If possible, have there be space to the left of their stand so they can play next to the stand instead of having to be under the thing. You're going to get more sound out of them because they're not going to be blowing directly into the stand. And also, it's going to be better for their posture. I understand there's only so much we can do. In fact, I see sometimes all the music stands are angled like that so they can kind of play past it. We can't really increase lung capacity. I know that we do breathing gym and breathing exercises, and those are all great. I happen to think we're all pretty good breathers because we haven't stopped yet. And also we can't increase the capacity, but we can increase the efficiency the more cardio we do. It takes less air to run your body and more air to do important stuff like play the musical instruments. So the more efficient your cardio system is, probably the more time you're spending deep breathing because you're doing stuff like running and doing elliptical and whatever else. So Yeah, you can't really increase the capacity, but you can increase the efficiency. Yeah. Slide grip. Finally. Yeah, don't do it like that. But the most precise grip we have as humans is the thumb and forefinger, right? That's when we do anything important, sign our name, have a paintbrush, violin bow, anything like that. It's the thumb and the forefinger. That's the most precise thing we have. So a disturbing number of our, I'm not going to say your, I'm going to say our, because mine do it too. A disturbing number of our students think that the slide is a cigarette. And they're like some like bohemian, like French person, and they have it like this. And the thumb is just nowhere close. Or if the thumb's there, they throw it. I've got one, which boggles my mind. One of my better students, I don't know, I need super glue or something, because he just like throws it, literally just the slide throws it back and forth. Like, you're lucky you sound good. He's actually at the International Trombone Festival right now. I've got a high school trombone choir that is playing at the International Trombone Festival. Students founded and direct a high school trombone choir from here, which is awesome. So the studio culture is going okay. But yeah, I hope he's not teaching them how to hold their slides. Yes, so thumb and forefinger. The thumb should touch, the forefinger should touch. These fingers, they're extra. They can do whatever. Some people like them kind of inside the slide so that if you drop it, they're there to catch it. That's not a bad idea. Sometimes you got the Spock going on, where you got two on either side. That's fine. Wonderful. I do that sometimes. What I don't want is like the fist here, or the fist here, right? Like they have like, if they don't have a valve, they have one hand here, and they're like, you know, those. We don't want that. We want the thumb and the forefinger. This is it. Most school instruments might not feel like precision instruments because the slides are garbage. That's a whole other different thing, because they joust with them and they, you know, they use them as canes. I saw one just on my walk over here. I saw a middle school student using his slide to open the handicap door. Wham! And I bit my tongue. I wanted to like take him in and use him as an example, because I'm sure his slide was not great. Yeah, it's impossible, really. These are four really delicate tubes, keeping them all in perfect alignment. I get mine serviced, and I feel like the day after I get mine serviced, I whack it on something. Job security for them. They're in league with the gremlins. So yeah, try to minimize all the dumb things we can do with that. But yeah, it doesn't feel like a precision instrument, but eventually you'll get one that's been taken care of, and it really is. You can make really small intonation adjustments. There's very little friction. You can do that and it'll come out, ideally. And so wrist angle can vary, right? Some people are like 0 degrees here, like they're looking right at their wrist. And some people, it's turned. I'm probably more 45 degrees when I play. But what we don't want is the full 90 degrees, because then we have no ability to use the fingers or the wrist, these multiple points of flexibility. We don't have the ability to do any of that. We're stuck with the elbow and the shoulder, just that. And I mentioned I was here on a 1-year contract. The guy they tried to hire, which completely understand, world-class, famous jazz player. I saw him do a clinic, and absolutely engaging, wonderful speaker, wonderful player. And he invited people to come up and touch his cadaver tendons, because he played with his wrist locked like this so long that he actually like had so many tendon issues that they had to replace some of them with cadaver tendons. So he's like, anybody want to come up and touch my cadaver tendons? In case you're wondering what trombone conferences are like, it's that. They're pretty wild. Yes, so no cadaver tendons, no only having the shoulder and the elbow as points of flexibility. There's so much tension here, unnecessarily. We could have so much more facility. How are you going to play with, like, I'm gonna hurt myself. So.
Dr. Shanks, you have about 1 more minute officially, but
Good.
we often go over a couple.
That's fine. This is my last slide. This is my summing up slide. One of the quotes I remember so much from Indiana. Legitimate quote from one of the world's best professional trombone players. There is such a thing as being too smart to be a professional trombone player. Because we have to somehow get these kids. We all know, as many jokes as I make about trombone players, our students are smart, they are interested, they are dedicated, they are enthusiastic, the ones who come to band camp at least. And it's really hard to get them/me to focus on and making a good sound all the way through. And there were a couple moments where, to me, it fuzzed out a little bit in there, and I didn't like the way it tapered up. Getting them to devote that level of attention to the easy, basic stuff is so hard. How do we develop that sense of, like, almost zen about doing this simple thing that we can do so wrong in a number of ways? That's the trick, and that's the challenge that I would love to give to all of you, is how to instill this sense of like calm study to the relatively simple thing that is making this thing make sound. Simple things are not easy things. The example I love to give to students there, I've got a friend who, he's a computer programmer, but he also holds the Massachusetts state record in the bench press. I think he's like 456 pounds or something ridiculous like this. It's really simple what he's doing, but it's not easy. You can't just ask a student to, okay, yeah, here, bench, we'll give you an easy task, bench 350. No. But mechanically, it looks really simple, right? You take the bar and you push it away from you. But there's a whole lot of steps between first seeing that that's a thing and being able to do it. And so coming back to, there is no like shortcut to some of this. The mindset, developing this like, it's okay, you're gonna get better eventually if you keep doing this. It's a lost art. Everything is so immediate these days. Everything is next day delivery and streaming and everything. Kids these days. But developing that sense of you can do it, just the mindset is the most important. Try not to be too smart. Fortunately, we're trombone players, so not that big a deal. Okay. So that is everything that I had to say. Yes.
Can I ask you one thing? Last year you
Sure.
rattled off some of your favorite trombonists to
Yes.
listen to. Could you just
Sure
list
can.
those real quick? They can jot them down.
Oh man, put me on the spot. There's so many players out there. I'll try to give you a variety of styles. So obviously gold standard still and has been for the last 40 years plus. Joe Alessi, principal of the New York Phil. His sound and his students' sound permeates not only the United States but worldwide. If there's like an American trombone sound, it's that lineage from him. So Joseph Alessi, I would listen to. So there's a guy in the Netherlands named Jorgen van Rijn, Jorgen Vanrijn. Wonderful example of a modern like European sound. There is the recent principal of Vienna, Enzo Turiziani, is a great one to listen to. There is a child prodigy who was on Britain's Got Talent, who's now principal trombone of, I think it's London, I forget if it's the London Symphony or the London Philharmonic. I think it's the London Symphony. Peter Moore. You can see him at age 12 playing solos and stuff on YouTube, and then at 18 he wins principal of London Symphony. Gross. He's got a wonderful solo album out there. In a similar vein, Michael Buchanan, some of the most tasteful musical playing I've heard. And then maybe even further down that road, principal of the Milwaukee Symphony. I actually just got to play with her a couple weeks ago. Her name is Megumi Kanda. Oh my God, so good. I was blown away not only at the musicianship, but the technical artistry. Somebody to keep an eye on. If your students want to follow somebody's career as they blow up, there's a person named Hillary Sims. She just announced she's the newest member of the American Brass Quintet. I heard her. I was judging a solo contest at the American Trombone Workshop. And there's a piece, the Leslie Bassett Suite for Unaccompanied Trombone. I bought it as a contest piece. Didn't end up entering the contest because I hated the piece. I thought it was dumb. Didn't understand it. That's probably why I hated it. I didn't understand it at all. Thought it was dumb. And so she comes and plays. There's 3 finalists. The 2 others played really well. I saw that they were playing the notes and rhythms on the page, and it was fine and whatever. And it was all very well done. And she comes and plays, and we all just kind of put our pencils down, and we were flabbergasted. For those magical 7 minutes, I loved that piece. And I hate it now, still. I still don't like that piece at all, but for those 7 minutes, I could tell that she liked it, and she understood it, and she made I've never seen an immediately unanimous, that's the winner, in a panel. There was like 7 of us on that panel. We're all like, do we need to talk? It's that one. Next. it was absolutely flabbergasting. So, yeah, she's had that effect on every contest that she's been in, and yeah, I think she's married to like a Chinese pop star or something. So yeah, just like the ideal. She's now a faculty at Juilliard as part of the American Brass Quintet. Yeah, so her career is just taking way off. So yeah, if your kids want to follow an up-and-coming trombonist as they make it big in real time, that's the one. Also Sasha Romero, who's principal of the Metropolitan Opera. Texas All-State kid, just was legendary in high school. Went into school as an engineering major, and then at Baylor, and then went to Brent Phillips and said, "Hey, do you think I can take some trombone lessons?" And he's like, "I think I've got space for you." Yes, just absolutely killer, just monster. There's so many, but I would recommend those to start with. And these are all like kind of different sounding, different backgrounds. Hillary Sims is Canadian, but that's okay. From Newfoundland, yeah. Yes. So there's people from all around the world, a bunch of different backgrounds, a bunch of different styles. So I would start with those.
Are you available for a few minutes if you have questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.